Hello, theater addicts. I'm Karen Flynn, and I am with Shelby and Madeline from Wonder Dogs, who are presenting Dear Elizabeth at this year's Vancouver Fringe Festival.
So I created Wonder Dog because I felt that traditional theater doesn't respond to the way that the internet generation consumes narrative. I'm not really sure how we consume narrative yet. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I basically just created the company to explore that relationship between audience and narrative in a 21st century way. I think Dear Elizabeth does that. It's more of a contrast piece in that we get to see this, the way that people communicated then, and also the way that they write their letters, the language that they employ is very modern, and it's also very quick. So a lot of the time it feels like it could be like a text message conversation, which is really wild.
Yeah.
But it's that contrast, I guess, between the quick, easy back and forth of a text message conversation happening over letters that maybe took weeks to receive. I find that very interesting.
That's fascinating. And the fact that you're exploring that now, I think that means there's something very magical about Wonder Dog and where you're headed.
I hope so, yeah.
It's very relevant.
Yeah. Well, next up we're doing a podcast project, actually. That's we're hoping to release 12 episodes of a podcast, and then the 13th final episode will be a live performance show. So it kind of, we get to build our audience before the show, and they get to see the magical conclusion on stage. Yeah.
Fantastic. Tell me a little bit about your inspiration for the name.
So Wonder Dog came out of the idea I really wanted to incorporate theater magic into the name, and the idea of wonder, and then a play on the word underdog, because we're little and new and just starting out as a baby theater company.
It's very cute.
I think this goes for both, but I love the community of it and how it almost creates this like little pop-up city.
Our favorite thing about the Fringe
is
the community of it. And say your thing about the pop-up city again.
Yeah,
that's totally your thing.
Okay,
it's a cool idea. So
I think it's neat how the Fringe creates almost this like pop-up city in Vancouver, and both over in Commercial Drive and on Granville Island, and audiences are just so much more accepting of the fact that they're going to go see 10 shows this week. And what other time in Vancouver or in the year do we get that?
And it's such a supportive atmosphere for everybody who's a part of the Fringe as well, because like even if like you've got like the world's tiniest little show, like you're still gonna have so much support from everybody who's here on the ground in Vancouver. If you're coming from far away, if you're from Vancouver, then you've got like you've got the people that you know, but you get a whole new set of support, like a whole new network from the people who create the Fringe, because we're all in this together. And that's
you
what
nailed
I really
it.
like.
It's so supportive, it's so collaborative. And this year you're doing Dear Elizabeth, which sounds amazing. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Dear Elizabeth is written by Sarah Rule. And she basically took over 400 letters that were written between Elizabeth Bishop and Robert Lowell and compiled them into this play that tracks through their relationship from 1947 to 1977. And it's sort of just the story of their relationship as told by them through their letters.
What do you find most fascinating about Dear Elizabeth?
I think it's really interesting because they're both poets, and I think it's really interesting how that poetry is still so present in just their like casual correspondence. Like they're just writing letters to each other like, hey, are you going to be here next week? Hey, this is where I'm going next week. Can we maybe meet up? And all of it is just so poetic and beautiful. Like they're so aware of language and the power of language, and they just love it so much, and they just never let that go, and I think that's really lovely as like a little bit of a language nerd myself.
What audience do you believe this is going to resonate with at the Fringe?
I think that like there's a little something for everybody in there, but I think that it's going to be it'll be interesting to see who ends up showing up, but I think it'll be a bit more of like an older crowd than we had last year, because last year was TYA. I Am For You is like kind of geared more towards like high schoolers. whereas this show is like it's a bit more intellectual because of all the language.
Right.
So I think that's going to bring in a bit of an older audience. And I'm also hoping like fans of Sarah Rule, because she's got some really good plays out there.
It sounds really romantic as well to me.
It is. It's very romantic, and that was one of the things that drew me to it, is that it's a romantic story. It's a love story, but it's a platonic love story, and I feel like we don't get a lot of those in our narratives that we consume today.
Especially between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
That's almost always like romantic, like romance. We love each other. But this is just so much.
Yeah, and these two love each other, but it's just in a very it's that intimacy of friendship. Yeah.
So something for date night, perhaps. Check it out, Dear Elizabeth. Why this choice? Why Dear Elizabeth?
We actually had quite a struggle securing rights to a show. As part of the Dramatic Work series, it has to be a published play, and so we had quite a lot of difficulty securing rights. So in the weeks leading up to the Fringe deadline, I was just reading plays and reading plays and reading plays and applying for rights and applying for rights.
You got me to read a couple plays.
I got Maddie to read a couple plays. And then I came across this one and immediately just fell in love with both of them. They're such charismatic people and so interesting and lovely, and they speak as though they're, a lot of the time they speak in a very modern vernacular, which is, I found really interesting in the fact that even though these are their words and they were written in the 50s. I also really loved Sarah Rule's. She does a really great thing where she challenges the design team a lot. Some things like reading through it, a planet descends, she gets on the planet and rises up, or he jumps off a ladder and disappears into thin air. And you're like, it's when you're reading it for the first time, you're like, what? But it's also very intriguing and kind of bringing in the magic of theater again.
Yeah,
So,
I guess in that production value, it must be quite fascinating.
yeah, and I loved at the beginning of this play too, she writes that this play is as valuable when it has all of those production elements and when it's two people sitting in a library just reading it. So from that aspect, I really thought it was fringeable, but also had the potential to really bring in some of that magic.
Great. And tell us about the process for you through casting.
Casting was actually a really wonderful process. Maddie and I have both done some stage managing before.
Yeah,
so
we've also both done some producing.
Yeah.
So we've kind of been through the rodeo of the casting process before.
Yeah.
And this time around, we actually had lots of wonderful actors come out to audition for us, and they were all so great. And we had some strong contenders for Elizabeth.
Lots of strong contenders for Elizabeth. Yeah.
And then
It was a little more tricky to cast Robert just because there were fewer auditioners. In the end, we landed on Anthony Santiago and Alexis Callum-Creer, and we are just so stoked with that. We feel so lucky. Yeah.
What have rehearsals been like?
They've been wonderful. The tricky thing about the rehearsal schedule this year was that I was working on Tremors. Anthony was in Dark Road with Ensemble Theatre, and Alexis was in A Few Good Men with Ensemble Theatre. So literally, every 3 nights, we had one night when we could rehearse. And it might have worked with my Tremors rehearsal schedule. So we made the rehearsal schedule at the beginning and we were like, this is it. It cannot change. And now that we're all finished our other productions, we've been in full-time rehearsals for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you've seen a major shift. It's all coming together.
Yeah, it's really all coming together. We're getting into just doing runs now, and just watching that story, watching the arc has been it's been a treat.
Yeah. Well, for our viewers, tell us a little bit about Shelby.
I am from Calgary originally. I moved here in 2008. I cannot believe it's been 10 years. It's so terrifying. I came out here to go to UBC to actually do film, and then while I was there, I decided I wanted to do theater instead because it was just so much more fun. And since then I've been working in the theater industry kind of as a stage manager, producer, designer, and now recently as a director, and I am just loving it.
Stoked.
Yeah, super stoked.
Yeah, I can tell. You're so emotional speaking of what's coming up. It's wonderful. And Madeline?
So I'm originally from California, the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've kind of been doing theater like my whole life. Like when you're a little kid, you're only allowed to act, and then in high school I started finding like my theater tech legs. So when I moved up here to Vancouver for UBC in 2013, I think, so 5 years, which is also like kind of crazy. I started working with a theater club at UBC as opposed to like being a part of the theater program. Okay. And I found that like that practical experience of working with the UBC Players Club was just like such good training wheels to kind of have the support of the university and have the support of your peers and have the support of just all the things that UBC has to offer for clubs. Yeah. So that when I graduated last May 2017, I've since spent the last, like since then pretty much, I've been working on shows, and I've been producing, I've been assistant stage managing, I've apprenticed on a couple of shows, I've been actually like stage managing like for Wonder Dog. I joined Wonder Dog like officially as a producer probably in like February, March,
something
spring. Like that. I also worked on I Am For You with Shelby last Fringe, and it's just been a blast, and like I've started like dipping my toes into the water for directing, and I feel like I'm just getting started.
Great.
And I'm so ready.
We're so excited. Yeah. It's been quite a journey for both of you.
Yeah.
Well, something to leave our viewers with. What do you think is going to be the most surprising thing about Dear Elizabeth?
The most surprising thing?
A teaser.
A teaser. I think we have an idea of what their relationship could be, and I think we get the script surprises us with what it ends up becoming in a really beautiful way, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks,
it's been
Karen.
A pleasure.
Thank you, Karen. Dear Elizabeth is playing at the Van City Culture Lab from September 7th to 16th at the Culture, which is in East Van.
Our opening night is also our half price night, which is going up at 10 to 8 on September 7th. We'll see you there.
Do you guys have a hashtag?
Yes, we do. Our hashtag is hashtag Dear Elizabeth 2018. Cool. Follow us on Instagram at Wonder Dog Theater.